Hi there, my name's Dominic McDermott and I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm married to Alison for the last 25 years. I have two grown-up daughters who've left home and two dogs who have decided not to leave home just yet. I'm a member of two communities, one of which is a small Celtic community I started and still lead. I'm part of the exec of the European network of communities and have a responsibility as international coordinator for prayer, prophecy and intercession for them. I'm also a key intercessor for TJC2, Towards Jerusalem Council 2. And this seeks to reconcile the Jewish and the Gentile parts of the body of Christ. I worked, however, for the last 15 years as a carpenter and locksmith in two prisons, as you might guess. And I had two trades there, carpenter and locksmith. But really, I had a third, because those were just an excuse to work with the guys, to evangelize and disciple both prisoners and staff. That's who I am. So today we're going to be speaking about hearing from God, with a subtitle, Interpreting the Prophetic Language of Dreams, Signs and Visions, with a little bit about hearing God through scriptures as well. Why is this important? I suppose because hearing from God allows us to live a prophetic lifestyle. And what do I mean by prophetic lifestyle? Well, I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a story. 2 years ago, I was working in a couple of prisons, as I mentioned, and work was getting a bit tough. It was getting a bit harder. There used to be three of us doing the job. One of the old guys left. He retired, and the younger guy I had trained up, he left as well to be a prison officer. Well, I was working 10-day shifts, getting up 5:30, tough job, and I was there, as I said, to evangelize the prisoners. Great fun, but it was getting a bit difficult. Outside of our base, near the office, there was an oak tree, and as the summer ended, every time a leaf fell from the tree, I felt the Lord say, "Out with the old and in with the new." Out with the old, in with the new. And I thought maybe he wants me to cut down a little bit, and so I said, "Lord, is that what it is? You want me to cut down a little bit?" And he said, "No, Dominic, when all the leaves on this tree are gone, you'll be gone too." I said, "Gone? Like gone? Or just gone?" And he laughed at me and said, just gone. I said, "Well, don't do that. That really worried me. So, shall I look for a new job then?" And he said, "No, I'm preparing something for you myself." And I said, "Well, shall I hand a formal notice in? When will this happen?" And he said, "You'll know when the time comes. It'll be obvious. There'll be a sign." Okay, so I went and told my manager that I'm going to be leaving, and he said, sort of when? And I said, "Well, I don't actually know, but sometime fairly soon." He said, "Well, give me a ballpark idea." I said, "Well, you see the oak tree out there? When this oak tree, all the leaves on it have gone, I'll be gone too." He said, "What? Who told you that?" And I said, "The boss, the boss." He said, "Oh, not the boss again." I said, "Well, I'm just telling you what I know." I went home and told my wife, Alison, and she said pretty much the same thing. "What? You can't leave. At least, how's that going to affect us financially? We've got bills, and what are we going to do?" And so she made me promise I wouldn't leave without her agreement. Now, in the past, I'd done a deal with her. I wouldn't do anything that worried her financially, so I made that agreement. And around that time, the boss began to give me indications that a new job wouldn't come up in quite the way that my wife was expecting it to come up. He'd promised to look after me and give me this job, but it wouldn't be a normal job. And how he explained this was like this. We know in Scripture, Moses comes to the Red Sea with his staff. He holds up the staff. The sea parts and everybody walks through. But the Jews have a different version. In the Talmud, they tell the story. Moses comes up with his staff. He holds up the staff, and nothing happens. And it's only then Nashon, the leader of the tribe of Judah, steps into the water. And the water, he steps in again. Nothing happens. And he steps in again. Nothing happens. And as he steps in again, one more step and he's drowned. he still takes the step. As he takes the step, the water parts and they all walk through on dry ground. And we're saying to the Lord, that's all very well, but I can't take a step because I made a promise to my wife, and now you're going to have to deal with her and persuade her that I can leave my job. Because I had worked in the prison for 15 years, a lot of people in the prison knew me and had heard I was going to leave. And people were asking, when are you going to get a job? When are you going to get this new job? And I'd said, well, the oak tree, just when the leaves have gone, I'll be gone too. So that's all I know. This became a great joke, much to everybody's amusement. And my co-workers, the same as everybody else. I even came back from one of the prisons past the oak tree one day to find my colleagues all standing around it, pulling leaves off the tree, saying, what are you going to do now, Dominic? And I said, whoa, I haven't got a job yet. Leave the leaves alone. And fortunately, there were leaves high enough up they couldn't reach, so I was fairly safe. Then I received a prophecy from a good friend of mine, Kevin Bridges from the European Network of Communities, a man with a strong prophetic gift. And this prophecy he gave me, a 3-page prophecy, included the promise God would look after you. Great, my wife loved that bit. God's going to look after you, especially financially. So I'm set. What a great word. And this was God's Rhema word for me now. Now, my wife was a speech therapist, and shortly after receiving this word, she was offered a new job and then another new job. And long story short, God multiplied her salary 4 times in 3 months. By the end of the year, she said to me, Don, I think you can leave the job. And I said, well, I made a promise I wouldn't leave till the new job came up. And she said, well, I can now manage just on what I'm earning alone to pay all our bills. It's only $7,000 by myself, less than what we were both earning at the beginning of the year. Okay? I said, well, I'll pray about it. I'm not sure, but I'll pray about it today. So I drove to work that day and was praying really hard. Lord, please, show me. Do you want me to leave today? Is it today? First thing in the morning, I came to a temporary set of traffic lights, digging up the road somewhere. And I sat red lights waiting and waiting and waiting. Nothing was happening. After quite a long wait, I drove through the red light. I think it must be broken. I drove through the red light. Sure enough, the other light round the corner is also on red. Now I'm a bit cross and late for work. And I'm driving, Lord, give me a sign, please. I'm driving and driving and driving. Came to another set of temporary traffic lights with a whole queue of cars, this time waiting in front. I sat there waiting for a bit and waiting and waiting and waiting. Nothing happened. So eventually, I drove past the queue. Now, this is England. All the guys in the cars were like, whoa, there's a queue. We always queue in England. Very important. And I was very embarrassed driving past them. Got to the other end of the lights. Sure enough, they're on red. And so this time, I wave all the people through. I turn the lights around so nobody else gets trapped by it. And I'm driving off and saying, Lord, please give me a sign. I'm really late now. And I felt the Lord saying, are you getting the picture? Sometimes you have to make a way where there is no way. Whew. That was clear. I was just going to have to step out, job or no job. Okay, so I got to work, went to see my boss, and he said, hi, what can I do? And I said, well, I'm leaving. He said, what? And I said, well, I told you, I'm handing him a formal notice today. I'll be gone in 2 weeks. He said, but I haven't got a locksmith to replace you. What am I supposed to do? I said, but I've been telling you for months I'm going. And he said, well, I didn't really think you were actually going to do it. I said, well, look at the tree. There's just a few leaves on the tree, and I'm going to be gone. He said, well, what am I going to do about a locksmith? I said, well, I don't know, but I'll pray. And I meant it. I was quite serious about it. I was worried about a prison with no locksmith. It's quite a big deal. And he said something which I can't repeat, to the effect that won't be a lot of good. And I said, well, I'll pray anyway, and I meant it. So I walked out of the office and I was praying, Lord, please send a replacement for me so I can leave with a clean conscience. My colleague at that minute came up the stairs and said, Dom, have you heard the news? And I said, oh, wow, I've got some news for you, but you go first. He said, our friend Andy, the locksmith who left 9 months ago, is coming back. He packed in his job last night and wants to come back here. He said, but the problem is there's no job anymore for him, is there? I said, there is now. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'll tell you in a minute. Just stay there. Went back into the office. Said to my boss, I found someone. He said, what do you mean you found somebody? You've just walked out my office. And I said, Andy, the locksmith who used to work here, could he have his old job back? And he said, yes, tomorrow if he wants it, that'd be great. And he said, that's an amazing coincidence. He actually wants his job back. And I said, isn't it amazing coincidence when you pray? And he said something else unrepeatable, I'm afraid. So there for me was the sign that I was promised, that bless me, because I was able to leave with a clean conscience. The signs of the traffic lights to tell me it was time to step out even without a new job. The sign of my wife being provided the financial support that we both needed by giving these different jobs that she was given. All these things combined to enable me to step out. And the testimony there was to both prisons, that I was living a prophetic lifestyle, moving according to what the Spirit of the Lord asked me to do. This hearing from God, living a prophetic lifestyle is something the Lord wants for each of us, each of you. And I'm here to try and encourage you to live that lifestyle.